The following is a reenactment of me walking into an H&M store a few weeks ago. Oh hey, what do we have in here? Sustainable clothes, recycling points? What is this? Greenwashing. It's greenwashing, allegedly. So I'm here with this video today because H&M recently announced their new sustainability ambassador, Maisie Williams, the actress. When I saw the commercial, I was very interested in the thought process behind the whole thing. As we've previously discussed on this channel, it is very easy for these cool, cute commercials to come on and persuade people that these companies are doing things when they are not doing things, and what better way to do it than to put on a face that you are familiar with that has been gracing your screens for several years only to disappoint you in a season finale. They have been on yet another aggressive campaign, which I will just put as alleged greenwashing for the sole purpose of, I don't know, not getting sued, as if they would sue me, but still, just in case. I could go on the usual arguments, which are just we know that they potentially source labor that is not entirely fair, entirely fairly paid, and they still haven't reconciled with things like the Rana Plaza collapse and the amount of waste being generated by the stuff they sell and how they face no consequences for it. But I thought, hey, let me actually look into what have they managed to get done so far. If they are working towards some sort of a sustainable future for their brand, you know, maybe I might be wrong, and they've actually done some things. One of the biggest things that they've done over the past year is donate money to the Hong Kong Research Institute of Textiles for them to do research into more sustainable fabric. The H&M Foundation donated about $7 million over 4 years, which the stat is from 2018, and since then they've increased funding to the Hong Kong Institute of Textiles for them to keep on going with the research, which can only mean that the research is going well for them to do it. They were exploring alternative ways of breaking things down and looking at methods to self-separate the various components that make up the apparel in the first place. My understanding of it is you separate and all the clothing that hasn't made it to be upcycled or recycled. So there is recycled clothing that is spun into new fabrics for new clothing. There is downcycled material that doesn't make it into clothing but makes it into other industries such as insulation for housing. And then there's the stuff that the Hong Kong Institute is working on, which is disintegrating materials so that they potentially don't end up in landfill. Also, just to tangent a bit, I always thought that all dumps of waste are landfill, but I recently learned that actually some countries don't even have a landfill, they just have dump sites, which means that the dumping isn't even managed and all the gas that builds up underneath there is just there, unmanaged, untouched, and ready to blow, and that is mortifying. At this time, what they were working on was basically ways to break apart the material, which it is easier to break apart organic material or like natural materials like cotton, but things like polyester, polyurethane that are originally from oil are kind of like, I can imagine that there are ways, and I haven't seen anything that says that there are ways to break them apart that wouldn't result in some sort of toxicity or waste, because where are you throwing away the remnants of that? It is important to keep in mind that a lot of the clothing in fast fashion is made from polyester and plastic, the relatives of plastic and the relatives of oil and synthetic fabrics like that. Also, the methods that they use include the hydrothermal method, which uses water, heat, pressure, and some chemicals to separate materials. That again sounds like a lot of energy to put into just reducing waste, but again, this is assuming each and every person who shops from H&M takes part in their recycling program, which they have in the stores, which is that people can go and leave their clothes there. But because, as we are seeing here, they haven't really finalized a recycling method, what is happening to those clothes? On the Conscious Line site of their website, it says, our aim is for all our products to be made from recycled or other sustainably sourced materials by 2030. This actually already applies to 57% of the materials that we use. So 57% of the materials that they use is sustainable or sustainably sourced which is still given in very vague definitions throughout the whole website from what I've been able to see, allegedly. So just to summarize that, they haven't finalized a solid recycling method, still putting in money into research for it, and have no clear definition for what they mean by sustainable materials that are sustainably sourced. But they have a sustainability ambassador who will allegedly help them come up with a sustainability strategy. I understand the need to, or the want to get a celebrity who is high profile, who will attract a certain audience, but it's worth noting all the movements that they have chosen to ignore that already exist with people who have years of experience in campaigning for fair fashion that they just like completely ignore. Yet they choose someone who, yes, has stood up for sustainability centered movements before, but isn't exactly someone who is like in the grassroots of the movement, and who's, not to knock Maisie or whatever, but I feel like even just having one person as a sustainability ambassador feels a bit like a weight on said person's shoulders, because for a brand that has so many companies, so many stores, so many factories across the world, you would think that you would need several ambassadors to be able to reflect the needs of your clientele, your customers, and your workers across the world. The presentation of the ad, I will hopefully show it here if I don't get copyrighted, but like it's showing this very future utopia, everything is cool and it's techie and stuff, and the sky is pink, and like where are the trees, and it's just like implying that once you all, as in consumers, decide to move away from, consuming all this bad stuff, then we're gonna be able to live in this wonderful utopia and just erase all the other issues. And it's like, but how did we get here? It's also kind of weird how in the middle of it, like, the image of Maisie becomes an AI, almost foreshadowing, I guess, when they replace all the already exploited, allegedly, factory workers with like robots or something. I don't know. It's just very unsettling and doesn't really give me a sense of the actual fair fashion movement that exists, which is very community centered, which is very communication centered, and it's kind of just like, oh yeah, via my own individual choice of recycling and whatever. No coalescing, no community action, just me, an individual, I can change the world. Very individualistic, which I think is still in line with, is just how their business model works, how the general business model works, and how it can work for them to, again, assume and put blame onto the consumer, which I do discuss in my general greenwashing video, which if you haven't watched, please do that. I don't really understand the purpose of all this, spending so much money on this sort of advertising when all that money could just go to paying their actual garment workers. It was just Fashion Revolution week, and just seeing all of the stories, campaigns, and the strikes and the riots and the human rights violations that have gone on just so we can have the convenience of having clothing in our stores. Like, someone commented on my community post, the only way at this point that their business could actually be sustainable is if they just shut down. But even then, loads of people's lives would still be in jeopardy, because then they won't have work. And is there still room to reform how the system works? I don't think so. Anyway, look out for greenwashing, folks. Tell your friends that not all that glitters is green. If you somehow enjoyed this video, make sure to do the things below, and I will see you next time. Did I just sing that? I feel like I sung that.